Most of us picture the National Health Service as a single, giant safety net. You fall ill, and the system holds you until you recover. Legally and operationally, that unified net doesn't exist. The NHS is actually a patchwork of highly fragmented, autonomous organizations, each operating with its own hard borders and individual budgets. The most dangerous moment in your care isn't usually on the operating table. It's when you cross one of those borders. These crossing points are where interface failures happen. A hospital might discharge you, but your clinic hasn't legally accepted your medication plan yet. This creates a bridging failure, a temporary gap before your general practitioner takes over. At these transition points, patients are routinely left without a doctor. The boundaries actively manufacture harm. Inside those boundaries, the organizations are driven by a very specific steering mechanism, performance metrics, and national league tables. These heavily reward high throughput and fast waiting times over safe, continuous care. To hit these targets, administrators engage in clock stopping, moving a patient just to halt a wait time penalty. You also see cluster discharges, where patients are suddenly released right before a performance deadline hits, rather than when they are clinically ready. Walk into an emergency department today, and you will see these targets looming over the intake desks. The clock dictates the clinical rhythm. For the doctors and nurses on the floor, this creates severe moral injury. They are routinely forced into situations where they must choose between hitting an arbitrary organizational target and following their own professional judgment. This tension breaks people. Right now, 56% of clinical staff report that they are working while unwell, a state known as presenteeism. When one exhausted doctor drops out, their workload shifts to a depleted team. That remaining team absorbs more pressure, makes more errors, and burns out faster. Staff burnout is an early warning signal. Once this chain reaction starts, patient safety deterioration accelerates exponentially. Stabilizing this system does not require a new medical breakthrough. It requires ending the culture of optional, voluntary safety compliance. The first structural fix involves standardized memoranda of understanding, or MOUs. These are formal agreements that must be mandated across all regional integrated care boards. A national MOU physically closes those dangerous gaps between organizations. It establishes non-negotiable rules for how a patient is handed from one legal entity to another. Under these terms, hospitals and clinics must adopt strict bridging protocols. A patient cannot be discharged until a specific named doctor in the next facility has explicitly accepted responsibility for their ongoing care. It replaces localized administrative discretion with a legally binding chain of custody. The patient is never left standing alone in the void. The second structural fix directly attacks the metric-driven culture by establishing strict safety prerequisites. Before a hospital board can declare a target met or claim a performance victory, they must prove that basic safety steps were followed. This means confirming that a named prescriber is in place and that clear follow-up plans were agreed upon with the patient. This chart shows how the discordant signal rule operates, triangulating high-performance scores against actual harm incidents. If a hospital pushes patients out at record speed while readmissions and errors spike, the rule triggers, blocking them from achieving a high-performance ranking. By removing the financial and reputational rewards for cutting corners, the system acknowledges reality. Throughput without safety isn't efficiency, it's failure. If these administrative fixes are thoroughly documented, practical, and capable of saving lives, why hasn't the system implemented them? The barrier is entirely a lack of political and administrative will. It is not a lack of legal power. In 2022, Parliament passed the Health and Care Act. This legislation explicitly granted the Secretary of State and NHS England the direct authority to intervene in unsafe governance and force integrated care boards to comply. There is absolutely no structural or legal vacuum standing in the way. The top-down authority to protect patients from organizational fragmentation already exists. Intervention is frequently stalled by claims of institutional autonomy, but publicly funded bodies cannot use operational independence as a shield when their administrative choices are actively manufacturing life-threatening risks. This elevates the issue far beyond hospital management. The state holds an enduring, overriding constitutional duty under the Human Rights Act 1998 to protect human life. Patient safety can no longer be treated as an optional, localized preference. It must be executed immediately as a mandatory, system-wide constitutional guarantee.